scored since the 20s in Madison, is what you're telling me?
That's what I'm telling you, Brown. Chez Mellusi, only 3.8 yards per carry thus far through 2 games. He is going to have to be much better to take a lot of pressure off of Tyler Van Dyke.
From Brett McMurphy today, this will only be the 12th time in the past 35 years that the Badgers have been a double-digit home underdog. 35 years, only the 12th time they have been a double-digit home underdog. What do you think their record is in those previous 11?
I would think, are we going straight up or against the number?
This is straight up.
Straight up, I would think they're 1-11.
I'm going to say 5-6.
They're 0-11 in the previous 11.
1-10.
Lance had it. 0-11.
There's more than a trend.
So 16.5, 16.5, depending on where you look. My bookie had it at 16. MyBookie.ag, code next round earlier. So in 35 years, Wisconsin in this situation has lost them all straight up. Not even against the point spread, but straight up.
So recently it was a blowout in one of those, not really a blowout, but it was a nice win for Alabama in that opener. I think it was down in Dallas, Arlington, to start the season. And I think Wisconsin had a major defensive injury early in that game that helped them. Is one of the national championships from the Rose Bowl, was it against Wisconsin in 20 or 25?
Potentially.
Seems like they had a big game back then, too. So, interesting time for Bama on the road, 11 a.m. tomorrow. Rockstar, if you'll give me cut number 2, Tyler Booker, on what is always discussed by us in the media and on shows like this about 11 a.m. kickoff times. Here's Tyler Booker with that hair looking like he just came off from a work day at the practice field, talking about 11 a.m. kicks.
So that you mentioned the 11 a.m. kickoff, I feel like we're going to be even better prepared than we were last year just for the fact that we're a morning practice team now. So guys are already used to being up early. Guys are used to eating early, and that's a big battle that you have with playing 11 o'clock games. But as far as going on the road, we've been preparing with crowd noise and just making sure that we're even more vocal, just really passing the calls along the line. So we're just really preparing for the crowd noise, and we understand that we're going to have to play early, so we just have to keep the same routine that we've been having since we implemented the morning practice.
Oh, Kalen DeBoer playing chess while everyone's playing checkers. He knew these 11 a.m. kicks were coming and moved practice to the mornings.
All teams want to play early on the road. The one thing you don't want to do on the road is play late. Generally, you get a less fired-up crowd early, and you don't have to sit around the hotel all day early. Every coach wants to play early on the road.
I think for Alabama fans that aren't in Madison, they probably don't love this 11 o'clock game. For your team, you're right.
Yeah.
But as a viewer, you just don't love 11 o'clocks.
Yeah, you can play that game at the pick 3. One more on Alabama. Rockstar cut 4. Kalen DeBoer on the Hey Coach show with our buddy Chris Stewart, who also co-hosts Respect the Process on our platforms with Kelly Hunter. He was talking about his offense, where there's still folks trying to, ease into the being comfortable in a new look offense. What he's looking to happen from this offense.
There's got to be an explosive element to your offense. Now, explosive doesn't mean that the ball has to be completed way downfield. You just have to have the ability to gain chunks of yardage at a time. And so, we want to continue to find those ways. And, we have speed. We have in different places. You want a mix of things where it's tighter and you can then break out of it, and you want things where you can press the ball down the field, both horizontally or vertically and horizontally stretch the defense. So, we have running backs that obviously, if we can give them some space to work in, you've seen that they can pop some big plays as well. So you're right. We do need to distribute the ball to everyone.
From the creators of The Next Round comes 2 new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. 2 team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
You never know what we're up to here at The Next Round. The easiest way to stay in the know with our antics and adventures is to follow The Next Round across all social media platforms at Next Round Live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Whether it's Dunaway sleeping in the studio, Tim and Lunceford breaking down the latest movie release, or Game Day Chronicles, we are here to keep you updated on the latest sports news while, of course, having just a little bit of fun. Follow at Next Round Live across all platforms to join in.
You know that sound. It's the wake up for another football week. If you didn't like week 3 schedule, maybe you'll like week 4. or maybe you'll say it's a slow week as well. But we love them all here on Monday Morning Live as we get going. I'm Jim Dunaway. That right there is Tom Luginbill of ESPN. Hat turned around backwards. That means Lugs is ready to get down to business. We're brought to you by our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag, promo code next round Lugs. Everyone's excited about Hank Brown here at Auburn. We'll talk about that. Everyone's excited about Bama rolling Wisconsin on the road. We'll talk about that. We'll get to the big Alabama-Georgia matchup 2 weeks away. Both of them will be unbeaten. Looking forward to that contest in Tuscaloosa. Let's start off, though, with the AP poll, which came out yesterday. Get a little flip at the top. Texas now number 1. Georgia's number 2. I'll ask you this first. Best win in the nation so far? Is it Texas at Michigan or Georgia over Clemson? Are you okay with Texas being number 1?
I would say it's Georgia over Clemson, having seen that Clemson team the following week. I'm perfectly fine with Texas going over Georgia. And I think ultimately at the end of the day right now, it doesn't matter. The performance against UTSA, obviously the win at Michigan was great for Texas. They've had Colorado State. They've got UTSA. You lose Quinn Ewers throughout the game. And then next thing you know, Arch, there's an excitement level with the whole Arch Manning performance in that game. And it probably caught the attention of some AP voters and, maybe sent a message that, wow, it doesn't matter who's playing on the field at quarterback. It's the same Texas team. And then you don't like the sniff, the scent of what took place in Lexington. So I'm cool with it. Listen, I think the two of those teams will be one unbelievable showdown.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that coming up. And Texas has some business to do before they, get to that big Georgia matchup. But they don't have a schedule like Georgia does with Alabama on the horizon for the next game.
Yeah.
For Texas, though, it looks like they'll go at least one game without Quinn Ewers, who's got the little ab strain. They don't think it's as bad as maybe they first thought it was going to be. Doubtful he'll play ULM. Then it's Mississippi State. Then they get the bye week. Then they get Georgia down the road. So not really challenged before they get Georgia either after what we've seen from ULM and Mississippi State. How do you play this? And what was your thoughts on Arch Manning getting some meaningful snaps in this one?
Well, listen, I think, and my thoughts on Arch Manning, I think this is a message to all high-profile quarterback recruits across the country. This recipe and this developmental plan that Arch Manning and Steve Sarkisian and the Manning family decided to go with has been the best thing that could have ever happened to this kid. By not being thrown to the wolves, not having to meet this astronomical, unattainable expectation level as a true freshman. Instead, what are we going to do? We're going to enroll. We're going to learn. We're going to get stronger. We're going to get bigger. We're going to get acclimated to college. And we're going to do it without any pressure on the football side. Just develop, get better. And now, all of a sudden, he goes out on the field on Saturday and has his opportunity. And nothing changed. They just, Sark does such a good job, but, on Thursdays and Fridays of going over each quarterback if they had to play, he would say, hey, do you like this here? Do you not like this here? How do we want to play it? And you just flip the play sheet if the next guy goes in. And I think that the growth and maturity that Arch Manning has developed by not having to be on the field right now through all of this hype and exposure has made him a better player and will continue to make him a better player. And if you're Texas and you're Steve Sarkisian, if you're going to have an injury, especially to the quarterback position, and I hate to say this, but Saturday was the day to have it because of the schedule going forward and what unfolds before them, and then you get the off week. This is a great opportunity to truly get Quinn Ewers healthy. And clearly what we saw on Saturday is good enough for Texas to win their next two as they prepare for, what's close to the midpoint of the season.
Yeah, and I should correct myself. They've got bye week Red River with Oklahoma. Then they get Georgia. But those two games should be challenging. He's Tom Luginbill of ESPN, and you see him prime time on the broadcast on the ACC network. We appreciate all of you guys in the MyBookie.ag chat room today. Promo code next round. Cheese says the Dr. Pepper jinx still going strong. There's Quinn in it. Doesn't need any backup. I do need backup. He does need a little backup there. That continues to roll on. SS with maybe the best comment of the morning. Memphis survived Florida State's attempt at an upset this past weekend. Florida State continues to swirl down. Let's touch on those Florida coaches real quick. We'll go with Mike Norvell first. Florida State's 0-3. Cal went in and beat Auburn at Jordan-Hare. So I surely think Cal can go in and battle Florida State this week. They're staring possibly 0-4 right down the barrel right here. How does this happen? How do you end up in this situation in Tallahassee?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. Number one, you had so many high-profile, productive departures off of that football team all at the same time, right?
Right.
So Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, Trey Benson, Jordan Travis, Jaheim Bell, Braden Fisk, Jared Verse. I mean, the list goes on. And these weren't just contributors. These were stars for that program. And they all go out the door at the same time. And then I just think that they made a terrible error in the evaluation process of the quarterback position when they decided that DJ Uiagalelei was going to be their guy. And I don't know at what stage throughout his career would have led them to believe that this is the guy that takes you to the next level. That has never been the case. And I know he's gifted and he looks the part and all those sorts of things, but the production level and the performance is exactly the same. And my fear is that a little ego got involved here. With, trying to say, well, we can fix him. If, we've had such success with the transfer portal, he'll come right in here and all that other stuff over the last 4 years will all of a sudden fade. And that's not how it works. And so the other issue I think that starts to seep in now, Jim, is the culture of the locker room, the chemistry of the locker room. When you go out and you create a roster through the portal and trying to, put a Band-Aid here and a Band-Aid there, when things aren't going well, what is the devotion and the loyalty to the program?
Yeah.
And who cares about what? Do you care about the team in the locker room or do you care about the NIL deal that you got? And so, Mike Norvell and the staff have their hands full. And, he didn't all of a sudden overnight take stupid pills and become a bad coach. But from a personnel perspective and the way they play right now, it is very, very discouraging.
Yeah, DJ, by the way, 16 of 30 for 201 yards. He gets sacked a lot. 238 total yards of offense. So that tells you, you have sacks that take away from rushing yards, but they're not running the football like they were last year. They're 0-4 since they filed a lawsuit against the ACC, basically saying, hey, we're too good for this league. We want out, and they haven't won since. You want jinxes or anything like that, that's one you have to wake up to every day. We'll get to Auburn and Alabama in just a second, but on the other side, or not really on the other side of the state, but just down the road from Tallahassee is Gainesville. And I was on a limb. I thought Billy Napier did the right thing. I thought Billy Napier should have gone back to Graham Mertz. I thought he should have started Graham Mertz. I thought that gave him the best chance to win. I didn't know what DJ Lagway would look like after seeing him against Samford, against a quality opponent in Mike Elko and Texas A&M's defense. Was I wrong? Would you have gone with DJ Lagway? And now after you see Lagway playing that game, was it still the right call?
I can see both sides of it. I really can. I think the reality is if you're in that building, Texas A&M isn't Samford, right? And while it was exciting and you saw a glimpse and a flash of what they're capable of being at quarterback, do you feel comfortable throwing that youngster out there against Texas A&M and instead of a guy who's seasoned, played a lot of football, and you think is going to probably be the less risk-averse option? Personally, when I saw it, I was really surprised by it. And I kind of felt like, at what point are we at right now where you don't go with the most talented option that may have some risk tied to it, but you ride it out and you start building the whole thing around him? But I will say this. I'm not as concerned with who they chose to go with at quarterback. My concern is this team is not only not showing progress, they're regressing. And it's one thing if you're struggling and you're trying to build a program and things aren't quite going your way, but every time you take the field, a little something is a little better, right? And you make you're a little improved here, and then you showed a performance here that you didn't think you'd have, and you're slowly taking steps. That's not what's happening with this program. And the thing that's interesting about it, and whether it was Jim McElwain, whether it was, Dan Mullen, Billy Napier now, you have to ask yourself, is there something institutionally going on there? Like, what is wrong at that place? Way too many resources, way too many facilities upgrades, way too much history, tradition. I mean, they've got so many things going for them, and it doesn't seem to matter who the coach is. Something is wrong there internally, and I can't put my finger on it.
So that's the state of Florida, which is not doing great unless you're Miami right now, who looks really good as they kill Ball State 62-0. They get Cam Ward 5 touchdowns. They pull him out, and they live to battle another day for Miami as they go to USF in a tricky, good football game this week in Tampa.
Yeah.
Let's get to the game everyone wants to talk about, and it's not Bama, Wisconsin. Everybody's on the Hank Brown wagon down here if you're wearing the orange and blue. We'll talk about that after I remind you that Who Is Coffee has my cup full today with Next Round Coffee. We curated this, man. We drank a lot of test coffees, mixing different beans from all over the world to come up with a Next Round blend. I really think it was Scott Forrester who was the leader of that jury of our peers on coming up with the best coffee. And he sat there and he finally said, this is the one. And so we've got the Next Round blend. You can get that and a bunch of other coffees right there at Who Is Coffee. Who Is Coffee, the easiest way to find their link and to order some of our coffee is go to nextround.store, nextround.store, and click on the coffee link. You'll enjoy a great cup every morning. Auburn's cup runneth over right now with the expectation of Hank Brown. That's a pretty good early Monday morning transition there by me. That was off the top of my head. Boy, I'm the only guy in the entire state right now who's saying tap the brakes on Hank Brown and was not ready to throw Peyton Thorne off the ramp yet. Hank Brown looked good. He's got unbelievable touch. That 50-yard touchdown pass or deep pass to Keandre Lambert-Smith was a thing of beauty. He drops it in there right in the old bread basket, and KLS doesn't even have to break stride. It was a perfect throw. And Hank had a good night, but it was against New Mexico and the nation's worst defense, FBS 133 ranked defense. What will he do with Arkansas? What will he do after that with Oklahoma before they get to the end of this 5-game homestand? You've seen Hank Brown. You evaluated Hank Brown out of Nashville. What's Auburn getting in Hank Brown, and what do you think he offers that Peyton Thorne doesn't offer?
I think he offers decision-making qualities that are far less risky, because this team in Auburn, if they don't turn the ball over and they don't hurt themselves from a penalty standpoint, they're good enough to play with the people on their schedule. But if they don't do that, they are nowhere near being good enough to play with people on their schedule, including this upcoming game versus Arkansas. But it was encouraging for what we had just talked about with Florida, where they're not making progress. You saw progress, right? You saw decision-making at the quarterback position. They were without Cam Coleman. You saw them have some ground game with Jarquez Hunter. And then I think the other thing, too, in this was a tight kind of back-and-forth game in the first half. 1 point, 17-13. And then you kind of put your foot on the gas and you start to pull away. In the second half, I thought Hank Brown looked better as the game wore on, which is, again, another sign of encouragement. But, guys, at the end of the day, just don't turn the ball over, right? I mean, don't turn the ball over. Don't hurt yourself with self-inflicted wounds, and you've got a chance to be a competitive ball club. So it's clear that they've made the right decision to do what they've done at the quarterback spot. And at the end of the day, we'll see as the competition ramps up if he continues to progress with his decision-making when it comes to protecting the football.
Yeah, so let me get this right. Anticipation and also his accuracy, it gives him an advantage over Peyton Thorne there. That with that offensive line, mobility, do you even worry about that? If you're so quick with the release, obviously Peyton, I feel like, is a better runner, maybe can avoid the rush a little bit better. But if you can anticipate the rush and be accurate with a quick throw out to a checkoff or something, that sort of makes up for your lack of mobility, I would assume.
Well, absolutely. And I'm a firm believer now more than ever that sacks and pressures are no longer an offensive line stat. They're a quarterback stat.
Okay.
And quarterback play, I don't care if you're 6'5" or 6'1", if you're 4'5" or you're 5 flat, it's about decision-making and accuracy, period. So you can help yourself with the understanding and knowledge of the offense and how things have to happen in terms of rhythm and timing, decisiveness, anticipatory traits to get the ball out of your hand and protect yourself. I think that's the thing. Now, if you're not that dynamic mobile athlete, okay, you're going to lack the creative plays to get out of trouble. But maybe you don't get yourself in trouble in the first place because you're not holding on to the football.
Yeah, great point there. A couple of more concerns, are at least talking points about Auburn here. I remind you, complete coverage of Auburn football and basketball year-round, 365 days, thebarnauburn.com, thebarnauburn.com. Go check out all the information, both pregame, postgame, all week long, whether it's recruiting or anything. It starts just for $1, but a lot of free content over there with shows from Kyle Rush and Zach Blackerby and Brad Law. Go check it out, thebarnauburn.com, thebarnauburn.com. They ran the ball more. They put it in Jarquez Hunter's hands, who went over 100 yards again. He's one of the best backs in the SEC. I didn't think they ran the ball enough against Cal. That whoever's at quarterback, you got a couple of quality horses back there. You got to keep leaning into the run game a little bit more, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you do. I will say this. I'm going to give Cal some credit here. They're really good on defense. And the strength of their defense is the front seven. I actually stayed up because I'm a psychopath on Saturday night after my game and watched Cal and San Diego State. Cal's starting to get confidence. They're starting to get better. That's going to be an interesting team to watch going forward. You're right. I think there needs to be a little bit more of an adherence to the run game. But again, that's also a numbers count sometimes. And with this offense, you're going to have RPOs. You're going to have checks at the line of scrimmage that may take you out of a called run because of a certain look that takes you somewhere else. We've got to take that into account. I think if there was a concern for me, though, Jim, with this team just early right now, it's on the defensive side of the ball in the sense that there's no pressure. They had one tackle for loss the entire day against New Mexico, and I that's got to improve up front within the front seven in terms of disruptiveness, getting people behind the chains. You start to interconference play. There's got to be some more disruption in the opposition's backfield.
Yeah, that was my takeaway talking point. Was going to be the last one at Auburn was the defense. The secondary, right in the middle, man. There seems to be a big hole all night long against New Mexico. The run defense, and then the pressure you're talking about. You know DJ Durkin. You've seen him for a long time.
Yeah.
Can he correct this? Does he need different Jimmies and Joes, or does he start scheming it differently now that he's seen him on the field?
Well, he's probably still trying to kind of find the right pieces of the puzzle. I do think they need better players overall. Like if you ask Hugh Freeze, do we have the type of personnel right now that competes for championships on defense? He'd probably tell you no. So I think that can be improved through recruiting, obviously through the transfer portal, but it's not if you followed Auburn or Alabama over the last 25, 30, 40 years, Auburn, you can always generally count on them having some guys up front on defense, the Derek Browns and the Carl Lawsons and a wealth of others. I don't know if that's what this group is right now. And so for me, I think there's still a work in progress on that side of the ball, and we'll have to see what they come up with as the competition ramps up. Yeah,
interesting for Auburn now is they get Arkansas. One of the most exciting games I'm looking forward to this weekend. It's 2:30 on main ESPN, right in the middle of the day, Arkansas and Auburn, and we get to see what Hank Brown looks like against an SEC defense. We get to see what Auburn's defense looks like against a running double threat quarterback, dual threat quarterback of Arkansas. So that should be a fun game this weekend. And I know the Hogs haven't always looked good, but they have looked good at periods of time this year, including a loss at Oklahoma State. Big game at Jordan-Hare coming up this weekend. We flip the script here to Alabama in just a second. But first, in the mybookie.ag chat room, some folks commenting about Auburn. Love the move to Hank. Looking forward to watching him for the next 3 years. A lot of people talking about the new shows being released. You always bring in entertainment stuff. Brandon writes in, Lugs, big week with Old Man and Tulsa King returning. Slow Horses came back last week. I'm a slow horse guy. Slow Horses. I've enjoyed it. I have not watched the new season. Have you watched any of Slow Horses before?
Okay, so I'm equally excited about Tulsa King and the old man. I have not watched Slow Horses yet, and I want to because I keep hearing everybody say how good it is, and I love Gary Oldman. So that's one I've got to dive into.
I think it's Apple TV on the
yeah,
screen
it's on
there.
Apple. Yep,
British TV
now,
show.
I've been watching Bad Monkey with Vince Vaughn on Apple, and that's a lot of fun. It's kind of like Fletch.
Oh, really? I'm a big Fletch fan, so that's very good.
Yeah.
I always miss Lugs and LT talking entertainment, so you can always get some of that. We got to get you LT back in some form or fashion just to talk entertainment. All right, the switch to Alabama, after I tell you about our friends at Gutter Cap, the seasons are switching right now, moving from late summer into fall. That means the leaves are about to start falling. Nobody covers up those gutters better than our friends at Gutter Cap. They've been doing it for years and years. Are right there here in the Birmingham metro area. Chris Stewart and the gang right there. Guttercapbirmingham.com, guttercapbirmingham.com. They'll come out, clean out those gutters one last time, and then they'll put a cap on it, and you never, ever, 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 ever have to worry about gutters again. Lifetime warranty and all of that. It's Guttercap, guttercapbirmingham.com. The best prices because you watch us. Mention you saw us on Monday Morning Live, and they'll cut that rate for you there, and they'll come out and take a look at your house. It's guttercapbirmingham.com, guttercapbirmingham.com. For the Alabama Crimson Tide, it looks good on paper. They go on the road, and they slaughter Wisconsin 42-10. But in the chat room, and I don't really have a problem with it, but Smuff, I don't like Milton having 14 carries a game like he did on Saturday. Jeremy says, no, Charlie says, yes, Smuff, you're right. Milroe, too many carries. Yeah, I mean, you gotta let the big dog eat. That's Milroe's game, right? He runs the ball, he throws the ball, 8 touchdown passes, 6 touchdown runs. They're not all design runs. They're there when the defense gives it to him. Yeah, I guess the concern would be about injury. I like Milroe's game right now.
I do too. I think the sweet spot for them is anywhere between 10 and 15 carries a game. And let's just say half of those are designated runs, whether it's quarterback counter, quarterback. You got to understand some of those too are a pull and pitch. And if the pitch isn't there, obviously you're going to take off and run. So there are other options on those plays for the ball to come out of his hand and go somewhere else. I think that they're kind of just starting to continue to figure out, you take an entire offense, an entire offseason, and, now you got new terminology, a new approach, a variety of formations, shifts, motions, personnel groupings. Everything has a different name and a different verbiage, and you're starting to kind of figure out what you're comfortable with. But I think it's clear that when you have a guy of his skill set with his legs, and you have his stature. I think that's the other thing too, is you'd be more concerned about mileage on the chassis and getting beat up if you're 185 pounds and you're trying to do this with your quarterback every week. But this is a physical specimen of an athlete. And so I don't worry about that as much. And I think that all you do when you have quarterback run is you create headaches for the opposition every single week because you got to play 11 on 11.
And you can't live in fear when you have a quarterback like Jalen Milroe, and that becomes why Ty Simpson is so important. I think I would love Ty Simpson in this Kalen DeBoer offense. You go back to Hank Brown, he's accurate, he's quick on making decisions, and he could do a lot of things in this offense too. You can't just keep bubble wrap on Jalen Milroe. That's part of his game, just like it is for Lamar Jackson and others. I agree with you on that. My biggest takeaway from this whole game, this is where the game ended to me. Wisconsin's chance of an upset ended. Missed field goal, pretty good field position, 36 seconds left before the half. I bet my bank account if Nick Saban was the coach, they would have run it off tackle or taken a knee, gone to the locker room with a great first half lead, getting the ball to start the second half. Kalen DeBoer was not that. Kalen DeBoer said, here, Jalen, take a shot real quick. And if you hit that, guess what? Take another shot. 2 passes, however many yards, touchdown drive. Then you get the ball out, and you go down, you get a Jam Miller touchdown run, game over. Yeah. That was aggressive, and Alabama fans ate it with a big spoon. What did you think of that? And do you agree with me? Do you think Nick Saban would have said, let's take a knee right here. We've been great in the first half. We're going to get the ball. Let's be a little conservative on the road.
I think he probably would have chosen to be a bit more conservative than that, but, who knows? But I know this. The approach, as you mentioned, was aggressive, but I think that's kind of the approach every series. I don't think there's so much concerned about if there was 20 seconds or 36 seconds or whatever. They had the ball. And when you have the ball, what's the point? The point is to try to go score. And so, and I think, listen, they got the personnel that gives them huge advantages in those types of situations, because there's always an opportunity for a big explosive play. And that explosive play doesn't have to come through a 40-yard catch, and sometimes it might, but it can also come from a 5-yard bubble screen that turns into a 77-yard run. And so I think he's trying to create as many explosives as he can, and it doesn't matter where it is on the field and how much time is left in the game. They are going to be the aggressor at all times.
Yeah, I like that attitude, and I like what this team is. A couple of more things about the Alabama game coming up as they get ready for Georgia. We'll talk about that matchup, sort of a preview in our next half of the show here. Remember, we've got the middle eight after us, Brandon Marcello and Ryan Brown, later this afternoon, 1 to 2 o'clock Central Time in the afternoon, Unlocked with Brock and LT as they do their thing. Of course, the next round, news conferences and everything sandwiched in between as we roll on. All of your Alabama coverage at covercrimson.com. covercrimson.com. It starts at $1, but they got shows every day, free content over there as well, covercrimson.com. All right, quick break here. Fill up the coffee cup one more time with your Who Is Coffee Next Round blend, and then we'll come back. 2 more things on the Alabama game, a look ahead to Bama and Georgia, and then everything else going on in college football. This is Monday Morning Live, the fastest 45 minutes of college football talk you'll get every Monday morning right here on Monday Morning Live, the Next Round Network.
A legendary coach once said, "It's not the will to win that matters. It is the will to prepare to win." Hi, I'm Bobby Humphrey, Vice President of Business Development for Bryant Bank, and I can tell you that our Bryant bankers have the dedication and the experience to put together a financial game plan that is right for you. At Bryant Bank, we specialize in community banking and offer personal and business loans, checking and savings account, mobile banking, and treasury management services. Stop by one of our 18 offices across the state of Alabama to find out what unbeatable service and legendary results are all about.
Stop by the New York Butcher Shop and pick up the finest in certified Angus prime beef steaks and burgers, premium pork chops, ribs, and all-natural chicken cut to order just for you. Their chef-prepared entrees and side dishes are the perfect dinner-to-go choice for your family and are ready to heat at home. With a great selection of fine wines and desserts, the New York Butcher Shop is your one-stop dinner shop. 2 locations to serve you, Cahaba Heights and on Highway 119 in Greystone. The New York Butcher Shop. Rare quality, well-done service.
Happy football season. At the Next Round, we strive to make our loyal listeners feel like they're a part of the action all season long. My name is Emily Grace McWhorter, and I do that by bringing you along for any given Saturday in Auburn or Tuscaloosa. From pregame warm-ups, touchdowns that make you feel a part of the play, and everything in between, our goal is to make you feel like you're inside Bryant Denny or Jordan Hare. Follow along on our social media at Next Round Live on Instagram, X, and Facebook. Also, check out thebarnauburn.com and covercrimson.com while you're at it. Here's to fall Saturdays.
From the creators of The Next Round comes 2 new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. 2 team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
Follow Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The social media team at Next Round Live is dedicated to giving you daily news conferences and practice video from UAB, Alabama, Auburn, and around college football. Follow and compare to the sites you used to visit. You'll also get the latest highlights and news from the Next Round Daily Show. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss a thing. Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. See more at nextroundlive.com.
By now, you guys know how I feel about my fashion. However, did you know that I care about your fashion choices? Cargo shorts are out, flip-flops are only appropriate on the boat, and please throw away that stained t-shirt from college. You may be thinking, EG, that's all I own. What do I do? Here's what you do. Go to nextround.store and fill your cart with a wardrobe that is approved by me. Stock up on logo t-shirts, hoodies for football season, and hats for every day of the week. Trust me on this one and head over to nextround.store to get stocked up for this season.
Just because you've quit going to the gym, it doesn't mean that you have to quit gym altogether. Dunaway, that is. With our Next Round podcasts open 24/7, 365, you can access Jim anytime you'd like. While you may have done away with your treadmill routine, our version of Dunaway is standing by ready to get you back to your absolute best. Find all that lovely Jimmy D-led content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and in the podcast section of nextroundlive.com. This message is sponsored by Jimmy Crypto Inc. and Jimmy Crypto for President.
Hey, this is Matt Roth, the franchisee of Walk On Sports Bistro in Birmingham. With the kickoff of football season, come visit us at one of our 3 locations, Stadium Trace, Greystone, or Trustville. Come enjoy our scratch kitchen menu while watching one of our 80 TVs. Whether you're looking for a pre- or post-game celebration, game day, or date night, we've got you covered. It's all about the win at Walk On Sports Bistro. Walk On, where everybody needs a little playing time.
Back with you Monday Morning Live with ESPN's Tom Luginbill, the one and only, the guy that's got insight on everything college football. We go unscripted. He never knows what I'm going to throw at him, and it makes this a lot of fun every Monday morning here. And as Brandon points out, it's a great show on Sundays with him and Barrett Sallee as well on Sirius XM. I'm the idiot who always will text Lugs and Barrett at 11:15 on something they're talking about, and I always get a text back from Barrett at least once a year. Jim, you know we do this show like 3 hours earlier than this, like almost sunrise. I bet you get it too every now and then. People will be like, Lugs, I can't believe you're saying this. I said it 3 hours ago, but thanks for continuing to listen to the replay.
Well, what's interesting is that show actually replays, all right, for 21 hours.
Yes.
Before Dusty and Danny come on Monday morning. So what we were praying is that nothing happened at Florida at 2:00 in the afternoon. And we look like a bunch of idiots because people tune in and think we're live and we're not talking about it.
Yeah. How are you not talking about Billy Napier?
Exactly.
But Napier survived Sunday, and it's into a Monday now. We'll keep an eye on that. All right, a little bit more on Alabama and what they did at Wisconsin. Roback.com bringing you Monday Morning Live. Roback.com, promo code TNR20 gets you 20% off that first order there. It is unbelievable golf gear. I wore a golf shirt yesterday at a local tournament there. Great pants. Love their pants. The ladies' gear there, the hoodies. Little T, I know, big supporter of Roback. Roback.com on her podcast. You can check it out. Promo code TNR20 gets you 20% off. In the chat room, Georgia isn't a must-win for Bama. They just have to look competitive. I still think they go 10-2 with their second loss coming to Norman. But here's the big question that people are that Win writes in there, WYNN Win, and is getting echoed by a couple of other folks. Why is Alabama not working Kendrick Law into this offense a little bit more? With his speed and everything, they're wanting to see more Kendrick Law. Last year, it seemed to be exclusively on those receiver sweeps is when they used him last year. They want to see more Kendrick Law. I know he laid out one guy, physical little block in the game. I made a note of that on my notepad here, how physical he was on a block on a running play. What do you think of Kendrick's game, and is that still something that could be part of this offense down the road?
Yeah, I think so. I just think they got so much competition at the position now. And, Jeremy Bernard comes over from Washington. He had a day yesterday. We're continuing to see Ryan Williams be the most dominant teenager in college football. I just think that the room is crowded. And what we don't know, and when I get a question like that, is you don't know what's happening each and every day in the meeting and at practice. Are there mental busts? Is he not as far along as some other guys in the room? And maybe he hasn't quite earned the status of being trusted to the point where, hey, we're going to get him the ball here, or we're going to try and throw him out there and see if we can set it up. So we don't know any of those sorts of things. And so whether he's getting the ball now doesn't mean he's not going to get the ball 6 weeks from now. And again, I kind of go back to my original comments about this offense is I think this is the tip of the iceberg. If you go back and look at the beginning of the Washington run on offense when Michael Penix Jr. arrived, and then look at where it ended. I mean, the unbelievable production in that offense. And we're trying to equate, I think, at times, this Alabama team should be looking like that Washington team on offense when they haven't gotten there yet. And so it's coming. I mean, the thing, what did we talk about last week, Jim? Last week was, oh my God, this guy's falling, the South Florida game, 13 penalties and 3 turnovers. You know what it was on Saturday? 0 turnovers, 4 penalties on the road. If I'm an Alabama fan, whether Kendrick Law is playing or not, I'm far more concerned about that other stat line over there.
Yeah, having Proctor back in the offensive line and everybody in their position made that team look totally different. I got to give respect to the defense, too, and I know it eventually, other than the first 3 minutes, was against the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
But this young secondary, getting some seat time together, and the way the front seven has been so physical through the first 3 games, Kane Womack's team's been fun to watch, and I think in the preseason, we said it on the next round, that we thought that would be a big adjustment for Bama fans, watching Kane's style of defense compared to Nick and Kirby's and all that. So far, I've loved how young, aggressive, the rotations, and just how they've been headhunting on defense.
Well, the addition of Overton has obviously made a big splash. And then Quay Rousseau's development, outstanding. And then you can't watch an Alabama defense right now without seeing number 13 come screaming across your screen with no regard for his own private safety. I mean, he is an absolute wrecking ball. And I'll say this, in all due respect, because I thought he was one of the best defensive freshmen I've seen in college football for the last 30 years. But you haven't even noticed Caleb Downs isn't in the secondary.
Ooh.
Like I haven't. Like, it hasn't been something that you're like, wait a minute, man, where's Caleb Downs? Boy, we're really lacking, at the safety spot. You're right about the youth on the perimeter. I think if we were to get into the time machine and jump 1 year forward, there's going to be 3 guys that are true freshmen in that back end that are going to be stars for Alabama on defense going forward. My only concern, and it wasn't consistent and it wasn't all the time, they got gashed a few times on the ground.
Yeah,
they did. They did get gashed a couple of times on the ground. Is it alarming? No, but I was a little surprised that they were able to run the ball effectively. When Alabama knew Wisconsin's playing with a backup quarterback, so you're figuring that kid's going to be conservative. You don't want to make an error. You're going to stack the line of scrimmage. So if there was a critique coming away, I think that would probably be it.
And real quickly, as you looked at that, was that maybe just them being so aggressive they didn't keep their run gaps fit, or do you think it's something scheme-wise or physically they could get manhandled a bit?
I think it's probably aggressive, leveraging the football, technical type of stuff. And with Phil Longo in that offense, they're always going to try to get a numbers advantage. And at times, if you're playing with a light box, they're going to get you. And so they might have been able to scheme it up a little bit too to create a light box so that Wisconsin would have a numbers advantage. But I still think the level of confidence that they're playing with, the newness in all 3 phases, it's a team that looks like they're bought in. I think that's important too, right? I mean, you have a one style of leadership for 17 years, and you deviate completely from that. There's going to be a buy-in period, right? And it looks like that's occurred.
All right. So we've talked Hank Brown. We've talked Alabama here. Steve says I'm not as much worried about Georgia. Tennessee more worrisome to me now as an Alabama fan. Let's talk about these Volunteers. It was against nobody in Kent State, 71-0, 65-0 at the half. For Tennessee, though, this week it gets a little more juicier. On the road at number 15, Oklahoma. NC State, and that was a big win for Tennessee in a neutral site against NC State. Now they go to Oklahoma. Was Tennessee the most underrated team in college football coming to the year? What do you like about what you're seeing about the Vols right now?
Well, it certainly looks like it to this point. I think the thing that gets glossed over with them is just how improved they are on defense and their ability to scheme you up and spread you so thin horizontally on the field that it opens up the run game. I mean, they can flat out run the football. Dylan Sampson is maybe one of the most underrated, surprising players in college football. But it's the thing that would concern me. If I'm an Oklahoma fan, I don't care where this game's being played. Oklahoma right now is not equipped to get into a track meet. That is not who they are in any way, shape, or form. And that's exactly what Tennessee wants to do. If Tennessee gets Oklahoma down 2 scores, that could be it. Because what I've seen from Tennessee is when they get their foot on your jugular, they're constricting, man. I mean, they are putting it down. And so we can talk about Nico, we can talk about their weapons and all of that stuff, but at the core of this team, it's like the fundamental SEC recipe. Run the football, be really good on defense. And, oh, by the way, at any given point, we can chuck 180 down the road on you. And it's they're scary. I think they might be. And I would agree with who jumped in there on the chat. If you're looking at a matchup problem, you're looking at a team that mismatches you, I'd be more concerned about Tennessee than Georgia right now.
Yeah, when it comes to Alabama's schedule, no doubt. Great point by you and our viewer there, Steve. Charlie in the chat room, mybookie.ag chat room. I wonder if Tennessee has some spare goalposts. I sure hope they don't need them, but concerned. The last time Bama was in Neyland Stadium, those goalposts ended up at the bottom of the Tennessee River. All right.
Oh, by the way,
yes.
that was an 18 penalty day. Remember that day?
I do. Yeah, Alabama played played great when the handkerchief was not on the turf there.
Yeah.
They didn't play that bad. They just made so many mistakes in that contest. Okay, I got 1,000 things to get to. In our final 15 minutes here, we're gonna have to pick up the pace, as Reese likes to say on game day. But one more time, let me tell you, mybookie.ag promo code next round. Mybookie.ag promo code next round. Get you a deposit bonus. They bring you all of our college football coverage throughout the year. Go check them out, mybookie.ag. All right, let's just roll through some of my talking points here. We've hit on the coaches in Florida. We've hit on Hank. We've hit on Alabama. What about that South Carolina team that missed a great opportunity, up 17-0 on LSU, still led late 33-29 and lost it 36-33? First thing I've got to ask you is, if Lenore Sellers doesn't get hurt, do you think South Carolina still wins this game and has a little bit more offense in the second half? That him getting banged up and removed and Robbie Ashford going in probably derailed another big South Carolina win, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do think they win because I think the passing game is a totally different option for them, which was a problem, obviously, with Robbie Ashford. And credit Robbie Ashford for putting them in position late to have a shot, and he did that. So he deserves a lot of credit for that. But you also got to credit LSU's resiliency. They just kept playing. They kept digging. They weren't looking at the scoreboard. They had to handle the environment and the crowd. Those wideouts at LSU are something else, man. I mean, holy smokes. I love the freshman running back, Caden Durham. I think he's got a chance to be a future star. Garrett Nussmeier's a riverboat gambler. But it was a blown opportunity for a statement, like, I don't want to say program defining, but a benchmark game of that type of opponent at home, highly anticipated, and then you get over that hurdle and you finally beat them. It was just, and it just goes to show you what happens if your quarterback gets hurt and you don't have Arch Manning and the rest of the Texas roster around you.
Okay, explain to me, as just a couch potato on a Saturday, I know you can't, after an interception, light up the quarterback, right? But on that interception where it looked to me like Garrett turned and wasn't hit while he was turning, like he started to run after the ball, and then all I do is shove the guy in the chest and knock him to the ground now, but it was a hand shove. Is that roughing? Is that a personal foul? That was in the gray area for me.
And what football used to be, that's not a personal foul. Now they're going to define him as a defenseless player, unfortunately, and especially because of the quarterback that he plays, and the fact that it was a bit of the term that we used to use, a blind side block. It was a bit of that. He didn't see it coming initially,
right?
So they're going to define him as being defenseless, and that's always going to draw the flag, whether we agree with it or not.
Yeah, probably wouldn't have been a factor into play if they had just stood there, and he probably wouldn't have chased him down. So I understand it, but boy, that was a tough play
killer.
Right there. Yeah, absolutely. All right, a couple other things I loved this weekend. I didn't get to watch a lot of the Civil War and the Apple Cup back in the old days because it was. I mean, you had Ohio State and Michigan, you had Alabama, Auburn, you had all these great games going on. I enjoyed the heck out of the Apple Cup being on week 3 of the college football season. And for
no snow.
Yeah, there was no snow. We can make the snow if we wanted to. We could put one of those CG effects on the screen. But the Cougs get the big win. And, I mean, tears in the eyes of the players and the fans. That just meant so much for them to beat the Huskies one more time before they've, who knows if the series will keep going. But that was such a big win after the separation.
Did you hear the head coach at Washington State? I mean, you're sitting there in week 3 and you have a game like that and a rivalry opponent and – the conference is dismantled around you, right? And you're grasping on to that game. Now you're going to be moving into, what are they going to call it, the 6-pack?
Yep.
Instead of the 6-pack coming up. So I hope they continue to play it. They should continue to play it. They should continue to play the Civil War as well.
Yeah. That game was good to see the Ducks finally look like I thought they could.
Yeah.
Beating Oregon State. I don't know what the Beavers are, but Oregon finally looked like the Oregon we all thought they were going to be.
Well, they didn't get pushed around. I think that's the thing that was so alarming week 1 and 2 is they physically got pushed around on both sides of the ball up front.
Yeah. Back to the chat room, Pritch Law was a great point. Back to the Alabama offense. Everyone talking about Kendrick Law. How about Kobe Prentice with 0 targets on Saturday? He's one of those guys that even last year, but this year, it seems like there's one game where he has a big role or bigger role, and then one game where I always wonder if he's dressed or not. And I wondered if he was dressed or not day on Saturday. So Prentice is one of those guys. Somebody wants to ask about Missouri. Do you think they're for real or not, Lugs? That comes from Tony over in the chat room. Missouri, real or not, rallied from 14-3 down against Boston College. And they got that transfer, Nate Noel from Appalachian State, who looks like a part of their old trend of great running backs. Is Mizzou for real? Can they hang around in this thing?
Do I think they're the 6th-ranked team in the country? No. Do I think they're for real? Yes. I also think that they played against a team that's much better than people think they are. And the quarterback for Boston College is a problem. And if you watched that game, there was a stretch of 5 minutes in the second quarter where BC self-destructed and it allowed Missouri back into the game, and then Missouri just wore down BC. So do I think they're real? Yes. The difference between last year Missouri and this year Missouri is they're not sneaking up on anybody this time around.
People are raving about a former Alabama quarterback in Eli Holstein of Pitt. Pitt is now 3-0, 21 of 30. 301 yards and 3 touchdowns for Eli Holstein, who was down the Alabama depth chart when he was in Tuscaloosa because they had all those recruits that you talk about all the time. And Eli now has a playing space at Pitt. I watched this kid, and I'm thinking to myself, no offense to Pitt, and you always start no offense off when you're about to offend somebody, but no offense to Pitt. There are other programs, look like Florida State, for instance, who could use a quarterback. That this guy went into the portal. He ends up at Pitt. He's 3-0, and he had 300 passing yards in a rivalry game. The guy looks good.
Outside of Cam Ward and maybe Kyle McCord, you could say it was the best quarterback acquisition in the transfer portal this year. And we forget that, he came in that same class with Dylan Lonergan. Yep. Both of them were highly recruited by everybody. And now Pitt is 3-0. In the last 2 weeks, Eli Holstein is the reason they had come from behind. They were down 27-9 to Cincinnati 2 weeks ago. They're in the backyard brawl, rivalry game, down 10 with 6 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go. He brings them back, and at the end of the day, he came into the 2023 class. He's only played 3 games, Jim. He is going to be really, really good.
Yeah. You think he's the kind of guy that stays at Pitt because they showed him this loyalty, or in this day and age, does he have another move in him?
Like Jordan Addison when
he
heads off to SC and Pat Narduzzi's going, we don't have that type of bankroll here. Like, you're hoping you come up with reasons to keep him if you keep playing in this fashion.
Yeah. Hopefully Dan Marino will contribute to keep a Pitt tradition
That's
going.
Right.
Get him in there. All right, as we move back to a preview look at Bama, Georgia, and a couple other things, I remind you 2 great sponsors here. Our friends at Roback.com, promo code TNR20, and our supporting sponsor, or presenting sponsor, our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. All the funds of playing the college and NFL games, the baseball playoffs, and everything right there for you at mybookie.ag. mybookie.ag, promo code next round. Michael gets us going back to the Alabama talk. You mentioned mention LT Overton. LT Overton is a dude, says Michael there.
Yeah.
Smuff says nearly killing people out there. He lit up the quarterback who forgot LT Overton was behind him there, and that body clock did not go off. It'll be a physical game. It always is when Alabama and Georgia plays.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia will come into Tuscaloosa, 41 straight regular season wins, 28 straight SEC wins. All that dating back, I believe, to about the last time they were in Tuscaloosa. So here you go, Alabama and Georgia in 2 weeks. Just a sneak peek, if you will, of what you expect in that contest.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. When Georgia can't run the ball at will, meaning that versus the majority of the opponents that they play, they line up, they turn around, they hand it off, and they impose their will up front, and then that sets up everything else. They couldn't run the ball effectively against Kentucky.
Yep.
At least not to the Georgia standards. And then you add 9 penalties onto the game. It was a sloppy effort. There was an opportunity for Kirby Smart and that staff to get away with one and have all kinds of teachable moments moving forward, be able to kind of take a breath and say, hey, guys, we got away with it here. And remember, Georgia's done that. They did it against Missouri a couple of years ago. They did it against Auburn last year. So I don't think it's an indictment of who they are, but I do know that everything, the bread and butter with that team, it starts running the football. And if Alabama is what I think I think they're equipped to try to make Georgia have to beat them through the air, which is that's not Georgia's recipe. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be fantastic. And what we saw on Saturday with Georgia, just like 2 weeks ago with Alabama, it happens. It happens. You're going to have a game like that.
Yeah, and nobody loves it more than Kirby does, probably, knowing that he's done this before. In fact, even with Kentucky in 2020, they go up to Lexington, 14-3, Georgia wins it. In 2022, 16-6, Georgia wins it. Now it's 13-12. They just don't score 20 in Lexington. So this is a Georgia tradition playing like that, just like it's become an Alabama tradition playing USF like they did a couple of weeks ago. It'll be fun to see that game in 2 weeks. It'll be fun to see some of these big games this weekend. One of the biggest in the country is Tennessee and Oklahoma. We talked about that game. Also, I'm interested in what you make of Utah and Oklahoma State this week. Utah, Cam Rising is a question mark again. Oklahoma State opens as a 3-point favorite at mybookie.ag at home. What do you get in this game? If Cam Rising's healthy, are these even teams? Or if Cam Rising's healthy, is Utah the better program?
Utah's the better program because Utah's going to be bigger, stronger, more physical, particularly in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I think Utah's the best defensive team in the Big 12. What you've got to do is, if there's no Cam Rising, now you're playing with a freshman in Isaac Wilson, who happens to be Zach Wilson's brother. And now you have more concerns because as a coach, when you're playing with a freshman against a ranked team, you may become a little more conservative, may not call the game the way you would if it was Cam Rising. So I think they got to get Cam Rising back. I think Utah is the better football team, but Utah's also going to have to show they can stop the run. And with Ollie Gordon in the backfield at Oklahoma State, that's always a tall order.
Shout out to Lugs from Goose, one of the TNR Mount Rushmore guests. I agree, always one of my favorites here. And we get him for an hour every Monday here on Monday Morning Live, brought to you by our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. You get USC and Michigan coming up this week. They're in the big house. I have a feeling Michigan has some losses ahead of them, and it could start again this week. Another statement game for USC. What do you think of USC going to play Michigan in the big house?
Well, listen, I think Michigan's got a major quarterback problem, and I don't care if you're playing at home or on the road. That's going to eventually catch up with you. SC, we know what they are on offense. I think the focus, if you're watching this game, can SC up front handle those two interior guys that Michigan has? Because those two as a tandem are like what Texas had a year ago with Devondre Sweat and Byron Young. So that's what I'm looking for. And then defensively, what impressed me so much about SC was they were just lined up right. They played functional, competent defense with energy and enthusiasm and effort. They didn't have to be spectacular. They tackled, and they didn't give up the ball over the top. If they can continue that trend, SC is so good with their personnel on offense that they've got the opportunity to get points on the board early. And now Michigan is not built. They are not built, like I said earlier, with Oklahoma and Tennessee to get into a track meet.
Yeah, not at all. Speaking of track meets, we can't go 45 minutes without at least saying Ole Miss put up over 650 yards again this week against Wake Forest. They're good. They get Georgia Southern this week, and then we'll find out what Ole Miss is about down the road. Luke's, thank you so much, man. Monday morning live there. Your game this week, let me guess, is it Michigan State and Boston College?
Yeah, BC coming back, the red bandana game, guys. And if I'm sure you're familiar with it. If you're not, go Google it, go YouTube it. It's one of the most inspiring stories you will ever encounter about 9/11.
Yeah, I go back and watch it every year on 9/11 to remember that, and it's a great game to watch. It's prime time on the ACC network this week. The Middle Eight is up next. Brandon Marcello and Ryan Brown, they continue the conversation. Thank you guys for being with us, and thank you to MyBookie, mybookie.ag, promo code next round.
This hour of The Next Round is presented by the Birmingham Racecourse Casino. Now